Hi, this is Randy, and this is my eighth installment in Common Sense and Ramblings in America. And today I'm going to do something just a little bit different. I usually have, when I start each one of these podcasts, I have an idea of where I'm going to, a topic I'm going to discuss. Or in the last one, I had a guest speaker, which I will have her come back at a later time. We seem to get a lot of good comments from our interaction and the topics she discussed. So today I'm just going to meander and ramble a little bit. I'm going to talk about some things that have been happening in our country and in our government. One of the things that's kind of really getting me riled up is the fact that uh, cancel culture has really starting to do some really stupid things. They are just trying to totally control everything in our lives, I believe anyway. I mean, they're doing things like trying to cancel, for instance, it's Dr. Seuss in his books. These are childhood books that have been around for almost, well, since the 1950s. And several generations have been raised on these books. And as far as I know, most of those people have turned out pretty good. I don't think any serial killers or other people like that have been created because of Dr. Seuss. They're pretty, I don't know, benign. And the fact is that they're trying to actually, eBay is canceling 6 of his books. They're not allowing those to be sold anymore on eBay. And I don't know if Amazon has jumped on the bandwagon yet, but they're definitely. But the thing is, it's had a reverse effect. Those books are being sold. They're like hotcakes. They're like the number one and through number 6 bestsellers on Amazon. So it seems like everything that they try to cancel ends up going the opposite way. They even wanted to cancel Mr. Potato Head, um, and the company actually says no, which is surprising that a company would stand up to um, these cancel culture people, these woke people. And they said we were going to continue our product as we have for decades. We're not changing anything. Wow, that was impressive. And New York is also the New York Library, Public Library, is saying no, we are not going to pull these books and titles that have been listed as racist and other stuff like that. But Disney World has been, I guess they're more of a liberal company. I don't think Walt Disney was liberal per se, but they've actually shifted towards that after his passing away several decades ago. And they're actually pulling some more of their animations. Peter Pan. I guess the depiction of the Indians wasn't the best in the world. I've seen some pictures, and it might be right there. Um, but then Pinocchio as well. I don't know what poor Pinocchio has done, but apparently he's on the blacklist. So those are just some of the, I guess, crazy little things that they're doing. Besides trying to just destroy our history and take away our founding fathers and make everybody think that our country was created in 1619 and that slavery started then, when in fact slavery didn't start until much later in the early 1700s or so in Virginia, when slavery really became more entrenched. Prior to that, it was more indentured servitude, and that applied for blacks as well. Um, they were given the opportunity to work off 6 years of time. So a lot of people came to the United States from Ireland and other places like that. That the poor people that could really, they were fleeing the religious injustices or strictness of religion, and also the feudal society that existed in some of these countries over in Europe and over in England, and that where the poor people were really abused and they didn't have any rights, so they didn't have any money either, so they agreed to work for 6 years. Um, and sometimes it came out to be longer than that, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. And it just depended on the situation. In some cases where the women were actually brought in as housekeepers, and then the lords of the manor, so to speak, ended up impregnating these women, and then they said these women did not have any moral standing, and so they actually punished them and kept them longer as indentured servants. Eventually, they did become free, but it also set a bad precedent to what was going to happen eventually. Um, and the same thing went with the men. If the men were found guilty of like swearing or whatever, doing anything bad, their terms were extended. So they didn't have a lot of rights during those 6 or 7 years, but they did. A lot of times, they did learn skills and become um, nice. They owned their own businesses eventually, or took over the businesses at some point. And so for some people or some companies in the northern states, not so much in the south. They didn't have those opportunities, so to speak. Because eventually indentured servitude came to an end, and the influx of immigrants slowed down, and so it wasn't able to keep up with the labor needs of the South, and that's basically how slavery really got its start. So now it's another thing that's coming out is that they've been battling this about, or bandying this about, should I say, reparations. Um, how are we going to pay reparations for people that were slaves? Uh, the last slave basically died in 1970, but he was born in like 1862. So slavery was ended in 1865, so he was too young to even be affected. And if they say what his age actually was, he would have been like 130 years old. I mean, he was a crazy age. Um, so when you started looking at the numbers, um, unless you lived to be 100 and some years old, the last slaves died at a much earlier age than that, like in the 50s and 40s. Because let's face it, people just didn't live that long back then. I mean, if you were born in 1850, the chance of you living up to 70 was pretty extreme, especially if you were a hard worker or a laborer. 70 years from 1850 would have put you at like 1920. Now that's 100 years ago. Um, so how many generations would that be from 1920 on? I mean, so like every 20, 30 years, you have another generation. So we're talking about like my grandfather, and I'm 57. My grandfather, he was born in 1910. Okay, and so I mean that. So I wasn't affected by it. He wasn't affected by slavery. He missed out. If he would have been black, he would have been missed it by 60 years or so, or at least 50 years anyway. So it gives you an idea that this reparation thing is kind of crazy because we're going to bankrupt the country. We're giving money to people that weren't slaves, that weren't affected by slaves. And also, how do we know? I mean, it's going to be kind of hard to determine which ones were affected enough to really justify this, because a lot of the black people were living in the northern states at this time, so they weren't slaves. What about all the northern soldiers that fought in the war to free slaves? Um, should they not be entitled to some kind of reparation? I mean, they gave their lives up. Families were affected and decimated. Sometimes 2 and 3 sons were involved in these fights and in this war and died as a result of the massacres. I mean, thousands of people died in each battle. It was a wholesale slaughter. But so the black people were freed. So why shouldn't these white people be given reparations as well? They were affected. So I mean, where does it end? I mean, they're talking about like $1 million a person or something like that. That's insane. The numbers tally up into the trillions of dollars it would cost. So we can't do this. I mean, I just hope they get this out of their head that reparations are not a viable thing. Now, if it was something recent that affected the people that are alive now, reparations for, say, a leak or from a nuclear power plant or something like that, or something was people were negligent and families were affected and people died. Maybe that reparations then, or something along those lines. So another subject is our open borders. When Trump became president, he walked into a mess, but he had some ideas on what to do, and they basically the liberals fought him. But eventually, we did get the wall, a good part of it built. When he left office, it was like over 500 miles. And as soon as Biden came into office, he stopped construction and basically stopped the patrolling of the border walls. So in some areas, the walls have been knocked down. Sections that were almost completely finished are been left, so there's gaps in the wall now. So there's just areas everywhere that they can be climbed through. And with nobody monitoring these walls, you can just you can climb over. Any wall can be climbed over, or what going around. The same thing happened in China. A little side note there. They built the Great Wall of China, but the wall is only as good as how well it's monitored and patrolled. And their walls were 2,000 miles. People just went around it, invasions, or climbed over it because you couldn't monitor the whole 2,000-mile wall. It was just too long. Too many people involved. You just can't protect it. And the sections of the wall were lower. They weren't the full height that you see in all these videos and programs. Some of the walls, you could actually hop over the wall. It was nothing but just a few stones. And what I've seen of our wall, Mexican wall, some of the walls, part of the walls, are not that high. And I guess they didn't rebuild them with the higher sections. They just left them there if they were already there in place. So it didn't do much good. But we are allowing all these immigrants, or should we say, I should call them immigrants because they're really not illegal because they're being made legal. They're not being tested for COVID. If they are being tested for COVID, they're being, hoarded together, and hundreds of people are proving to be positive for COVID. They're not even giving them the vaccines for the ones that aren't positive. And basically, they're just going to come in and spread it all over again. We're going to have a second pandemic, or upswing, should I say, or third, or whatever, in the southern states because of all this influx of people. And it's not a good thing, really, is it? Our economy still hasn't climbed out of the recession, basically, from the COVID pandemic or coronavirus pandemic. There are still millions of people that are unemployed, and thanks to Biden's, I refuse to call him President Biden, but Biden, he is our president, but he is not president to me. His actions have cost us thousands and thousands of jobs, and he's preventing us from doing any new fracking on public land. And so you can notice the price of gas has gone up. It's gone up like 30, 40 cents a gallon, if not more. In some places it's $3.30 a gallon. In California, there's actually, in some areas, it's over $4 a gallon. We're right back where we were under the Obama administration when gas prices were crazy. We're all in the threes, almost fours. And in California, it went up to $5. I remember wanting to buy a diesel truck, and diesel fuel was well over $4.50 a gallon for diesel fuel. So it's gotten crazy. And the Keystone Pipeline was stopped. We had all the money paid for it, and it just stopped. So we got a pipeline there. It's just going to gather rust and dust and not be used until some other president, conservative president, comes in office and allows it to be continued. But by then, it may be a moot point. Canada may already be selling all the oil to somebody else. So the pipeline will be just there for looks, for nothing else. A big paper weight for the earth. So this country is really having some problems, and I'm thinking that a lot of these issues, or these people that are being allowed into this country, the Democratic Party seems to think that they're going to vote Democrat. Well, they're probably right. So with all the illegal aliens, they say around 12 million, but the estimates are probably closer to 20 million people, or if not even more, that are here illegally that will be made legal citizens of this country. And they were already getting health benefits because we can't turn away anybody in the hospitals, so they were getting their health care regardless. And will these people be paying taxes? No, just because they are citizens now doesn't mean they'll be paying taxes, because they can be working under the table, which I'm sure they will continue to do. So they'll be collecting wages, and they'll be shipping the money to Mexico or wherever their birth countries are, and they won't be paying into the economy, but they will be certainly now collecting other benefits. They'll be getting Medicare, Medicaid, and all that good stuff, and they'll be voting. And if they hold any loyalty to the people that gave them citizenship, they'll be voting Democrat. So this is a plan by the Democrats. They know that they probably can't keep on stealing or cheating their way through the election. So what they're going to do is they're going to increase their voting numbers, the numbers of Democrats. So if you bring in 20, 30 million people and have them all vote Democrat, that'll totally destroy the chances of any Republican being elected for president, no matter what you do. But you just can't be that popular. And then, of course, there's always the cheating. They just want to cheat as much. So I've written several articles on voting corruption and voting reform. And actually, I've got a whole section just on reform. Pretty much every part of this country and government needs to be reformed, updated, and changed. Except, of course, our freedom of speech. Our freedom of speech needs to remain free. But even that is not going to happen anymore, or it isn't happening anymore. You have big tech companies that are controlling the information that we receive, like Google. If you do a search, and they have limits. If you search something on Trump, they're going to block you for anything that's positive and just allow you to see negative stuff. You have to actually use different search engines like DuckDuckGo, and then you can actually get some real information. So, and then you got Facebook. I have some blog on Facebook that I blog and podcast that I talk about, and on there, but I'm being limited. I'm switching from the regular Facebook because I have 5,000 followers, or friends, should I say, and I'm switching over to the larger pages on Facebook, so I can have unlimited followers or friends, and they're just allowing me to transfer a couple over every week. So I'm not even getting a full benefit. I don't even have 5,000 on that yet, because they're nickel and diming me. And they're also, I should be doing a lot more than I have as far as increasing my numbers, and I'm not. I'm actually losing numbers on my page, and this is all because I'm being blocked by Facebook. Okay, and I've had my blog has been out since last June, and it is common-sense-in-america.com. And I've got over 280. I actually have 281 published articles on there, and another 20 that have been scheduled. And I have maybe 6,000 or 7,000 views, but I do have quite a wide following throughout the world. People from 90 different countries have read my articles. So you would think if I have that many countries, people in that many countries reading my postings, I should have tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of views. I think I'm being blocked as well. I'm being limited because I do hashtags on there, and anybody that types in these topics or words or whatever keywords, they should be bringing people into my blog, and it's not happening, not very much anyway. I do have a lot of repeat customers, so those are the ones that are viewing my articles, because I do post on Tuesdays and Fridays every week. And occasionally, because I have such a glut of articles, I've been actually posting more frequently, and I do have a couple that I've been posting a couple times where I post them two articles on one day. They kind of tie in together. So some of the articles that I'll be posting, I actually have a couple that's called Randy's Musings 1 and 2, where I have a lot of short topics that are just that don't warrant a whole article by themselves. And then other articles are reverse mortgage is legit. Does Tiger Woods have a self-destructive personality? And the topics that I cover are just things that people talk about. Governor Cuomo's behavior during the pandemic. These are articles that are going to be posted in the next month or so. Um, Another one is illegal immigrants or legal immigration. What is it if? Corruption in our public schools. And these are all things that affect people's lives. Okay. And so, well, I guess my time is up. I'm at over 20 minutes, and I try to limit my podcast around 20 minutes or so. And just so people won't get bored. And like I said, I don't know if I really solved anything today, but I've discussed a lot of different topics. So, guys, I always say, please be safe, keep the fight up, and you guys have a great day. And I will see you next week. Thank you for listening.